Hi and welcome to Literary Hype. I am Stephanie, your Literary Hype Woman, and today on our author conversation series, I've got an author who's putting her book out there in a little bit different of a way. It's not quite independent publishing and it's not quite traditional either. It's kind of this middle ground. So we're going to talk about that as well, but we are going to discuss 12 Hours in Manhattan by Maan Gabriel. So here is my conversation with her. Welcome to Literary Hype. Got your second book out, 12 Hours in Manhattan. So go ahead and introduce us to the storyline that you've got in this book.
This is a story of a chance encounter of two very different souls. And I wanted to explore how it will blend into two perfect strangers, trying not to hide anything from each other, but a blank space, like a blank canvas. And they start talking about their dreams and their dreams and how they want to seek freedom from their own lives. And I thought it was a great story to tell, but with a little twist. And I will not spoil that, but people ask me, those who've read it, why? Because I wanted to show the complexities of life and living. And so that's what happened with this book.
So we've got a little celebrity romance going on here. Why did you want to tackle this? There's so many books featuring the K-drama, K-pop, C-drama stars. What made you want to tackle this in your own way?
I have to admit this. I'm a big K-drama fan. And I wrote this book during the beginning of the pandemic when we thought the world will open eventually, but it didn't. And I just finished watching this Korean drama called Crash Landing on You. And it was amazing. And I fell in love with the character. So the male character. So it was some sort of a fan fiction. So after watching Crash Landing on You, I checked out all his other television series and the movies that he's made, and not all of them are romantic comedy. There were like action films and just very interesting and intense movies and TV shows that he has done. And then I started reading about him, who he is in real life, and I thought to myself, how can I come down from that fandom high, right? So I started creating a world where the main character is in this guy's likeness. And I enjoyed writing it because I felt like I was being part of his world in my own way. So yes, this is a fan fiction.
I mean, fan fiction launches a lot of careers. So we don't poo-poo on fan fiction around here. It's good times.
Yeah.
So your main character in this book, she's a bit older than what we see a lot of romance books. How important is it to have that representation age-wise?
Yes, it is very important to me. I've been a big romance reader all my life, or a big, movies about romance. And as you age, right, love is no longer just confined at a certain age group. It's like there's love at 30 or 35, 40, and 50. And for me, 36 is a perfect balance where life already takes a big toll in that person, in romantic love is not the core of it all. And so there are so many factors that a person at that certain age has to tackle to be able to freely say, okay, I can love now. Like, I can do this. And so that is very important to me. And that's what I was trying to talk to a lot of people as well, when, advanced readers, is that this is not romantic comedy. It's a heavy book. And I wanted to show that heaviness with a spark of hope, So I think for me, 36-year-old to almost 40, I think, is a good range where life really happens to somebody.
And there is a lot of life that happens in this book. It's 12 hours in Manhattan, but that 12 hours is such a small part of this story. And you do tackle a lot of heavy topics, which a lot of people wouldn't think would be part of a romance. Why did you decide that this was the book, this was the story, to include a lot of really heavy issues, but also still having that hope of romance?
I wanted to touch on topics that are really brave, right? Even with my first book, I'm very grateful for people thinking that it was a brave book of strength and resilience, and I wanted to continue that. I don't want to sugarcoat life, right? Because these are the things that we read about every day. Your best friend's gone through with it. Your, I don't know, your college professor, or just people in your life, and you hear the stories and you want to share them in a way that brings hope after falling or pain. And I think that's always been, personally, what I want to impart. So I know it's kind of heavy, and I am going to repeat this. This is not a romantic comedy, but I just thought it's something I'd like to explore. And a big part of it was with After Perfect, with my first book. I received a lot of letters from people who said, "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for realizing that I exist, and I want to be there for them too." With 12 hours.
We've also got some really good ethnic representation so you've got a K-drama star, and you've got a girl who moved to the US from the Philippines. Like, talk a little bit about seeing that kind of representation on the page for someone who is from the Philippines.
It is amazing to be able to have the freedom to write who I am in mainstream. Like, it's not always the case. And believe me, I'm just having lunches with this author so we can, do it together and push the narrative further. So writing, they say, write what you know. But in this case, it's really what I know, because I moved to the United States later on in life. And to be able to share those, and not just the food or the culture, about the relationship with parents or a mom, it was freeing. I thought it was something that made me feel so free, and at the same time exploring other cultures that I'm fascinated with, right? It's like it's a K-drama star, and so I started researching about him or them, about their culture. And I said, I'm no expert. I am just a big fan, fascinated with that culture. So I thought I'd write about it.
And this is really fun for me. Like, this book, so my mom isn't Filipino, but she was born in the Philippines. So it's not very often you get a Filipino character. So that's always a fun little treat for me.
I'm so glad. It is so, I was just talking, I just mentioned, like, Filipino authors, and how it's not easy to break into this mainstream creative space, right? And so to be able to meet people who actually can somehow, in a way, relate to a Filipino represented book, is a thrill and a joy in our hearts.
So everyone's like, "Wait, you don't look Filipino?" I'm like, "No, like Navy, but she was born there, so it's a special place."
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you.
So this is a realistic fiction story. What kind of research process did you go through? What did you look for when you were kind of crafting your places and people in this? Are there any specific factoids that really helped inform your characters?
So first, I stopped the MC from Crash Landing on You. Like, I felt like, okay, he's not your mainstream celebrity, right? So I research on him. I research his mannerisms, how he talks to his co-stars, and what the industry thinks of him. So, I research that. That's number one. Number two, I love New York. if I were single, I'll probably be there now, living a dream. But I before the pandemic, I would go there like maybe 3, 4 times a year, because I always say the city has so many gems in plain sight. You just have to find it, like a simple statue, small statue somewhere, and people will just walk by it, but their story, and that fascinates me. So that's a lot of research as well. I researched the heavy themes. I talked to doctors about it. I didn't want to dwell too much into it because I didn't want it to be like a medical narrative of an issue. So, but I did also check with sensitive readers, about cultures. And of course, there's me, which is Filipino, and who I am and how our big family talks. So that was the easy part.
I've been talking a lot with other authors about like the support systems that you have and have to have in place to be a writer when you are a wife and mom. What did your writing support system and writing process, kind of like your daily routine, kind of look like while you were working on this book?
I do have a day job. That's hard. But my husband's a great support. And so is my 16-year-old boy, who would say, okay, I'll read your romance book, mom, just so to help me out. Yes, the support system, it takes a village. It's really important. Because when I write, your world is in that book. It's where you created. So I do that after the like nighttime. Some says when you're succeeding at one thing, you're failing at the other, right? And so it is great to know your balance, but at the same time, it's also great to have people to talk to and not just help you out with your daily life. Your mental health is also very critical. And so having other authors that help me out is a gem. It's really gold. So yes, it takes a village.
What did you learn about yourself and writing while working on this book that you're going to take forward with future projects?
Oh, that's hard to think about. What did I learn in this book? So my first book, I wrote for 5 years. This book, I wrote for 5 months. And so I guess what I learned with this book is that because it was the pandemic, right? And I really jumped into it. And then I simmered. I think if I were given more time before it was acquired, I would have stretched more time to play with it. But as it is, I'm already happy. I'm just, how you can add more creative stuff. But, publishing world is as it is. Deadlines.
Did you get any advice along the way that really stuck with you or that you would pass on to other writers?
What can I impart to other authors? I think love what you write is really important. I know research is an integral part in making a credible story, but this fan fiction for me was a joy. And because it was joyful, I was able to write it very fast and with great fascination. So for authors, I guess it's more about like, make sure you write something that you can own, I feel.
So I normally don't do like indie authors just because there's so many and I don't want to, make anybody feel like I'm leaving them out or anything. But this one stuck by me because of the way that it was presented and I didn't realize it was indie. So you did this through She Writes Press. Kind of talk about what that process is like, because this is a whole different thing that I hadn't heard of until you came around.
Oh, okay. I love She Writes. It's all women power press. We're a small press and it's called hybrid, right? So it's the third way. It's not self-published and it's not traditional, but it's also their submission process is also not easy. So there is a 2-tier submission and acceptance process or acquisition process that you have to go through. So it's not a guarantee, which I love. Otherwise, it's vanity press. It's apparently there's that. But She Writes is your partners, right? I learned about them through Women's Fiction Writers Association, and they've said so many great things about She Writes Press. I didn't know about it either, and so I researched. And yeah, so it's a partnership. I've never self-published, nor have I traditionally published, but I've been very happy with She Writes because the distribution is the same. Like Barnes and Noble scare me. In fact, Barnes and Nobles always invite me for book signing, which is amazing. So like we already have book signing set up with them after the launch. So our distribution is no different than a traditional published. But the beauty of this is like as if you're an independent author, you can do your fun things, merch, advertise it the way you want it, market it the way you want it. And it's very entrepreneurial. They hold your hands on the professional sides that you don't know about, like cover and editing and how it's being distributed. But you also get the fun side, right? You as an author, you can go wherever you want to go, well, within limits. But and you are both independent and traditionally distributed. Did I answer your question? I feel it's like confusing.
I think so. Like it's because it is kind of a weird middle ground.
Yeah, it is a weird middle ground because you also put money in it as an author. But it's not a lot. I love their business model because I have the creative freedom. But at the same time, I have a full support of professionals behind me. They will tell me if what I decided is not working. Like for instance, oh my gosh, I'm going to tell you this. The title of my first book was horrible, like really horrible. And then, during the creative process, we talked about the editorial process. They said, we have to change the title of your book. This is not working out for marketing purposes. And, if you're self-published, you wouldn't really think that, right? But because there's a professional who's traditionally distributing books that knows the market, then it helped me out. So like, oh yeah, you're right. And She Writes is now being advertised in Publishers Weekly, or being recognized in Publishers Weekly. I got a library journal review, which was not as a given, I think, for independent authors. So we are being recognized now as a third way, because publishing is a very complex industry, I think.
Ain't that the truth? Oh man.
And yet we do this and love it, right?
Yeah, something like that. So since this is a book about K-dramas, what K-dramas would you recommend to people who have never watched one before?
Oh, I'm so excited. I would do The Goblin. That's one. I don't know if you guys heard about it. That's one that I would recommend because I think up to now that's still the best K-drama I've ever watched. And then there's so much. People will hate me. I like 2125. That's on Netflix. Hate to Love You, which I'm watching right now. Like I binged it 5 episodes last night. I love that. So many old K-dramas. The Heirs. Oh my gosh. If I can give you a list. Let's just put it this way. I binge watch every weekend. I know it's not healthy, but that's what I do. There's so much. But I would start with The Goblin for sure.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before I get to my last question?
I just want to invite everybody to check out 12 Hours in Manhattan. And I want to explain that it is not a romantic comedy. It is a very heavy themed book, but with lots of love and hope and dreams. So there.
The last question is the most fun one. Because this is literary hype, what books are you hyped about?
I am obsessed with Olivia Blake's book right now. So I finished the Atlantic, so I'm doing the Atlas Paradox. I'm going to start judging my. Have you seen it? Have you? Yes, right.
Signed copy.
Oh, you do? Okay. So, yes, I am a big fan of JoJo, but I'm also a big fan of. I was just in London, and I'm a big fan of, I don't know, British authors or Irish authors. So so this is what I got at the airport, and I'm trying it out. But I'm a big fan of Marian Keyes and Sheila O'Flanagan. I think that they inspired me to actually write about life happening. It does not have to be fantastic. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be grand. It's just life happening. And they said, once you start writing there, people will see themselves in that book. And that's what's important.
Oh, that's such a sweet note to end on. Well, thank you so much for your time and hanging out talking about 12 Hours in Manhattan.
Thank you for having me. I mean, seriously, thank you.
Thanks to Maan for hanging out with me to talk about her writing journey and her book, 12 Hours in Manhattan. If you're interested in picking up this book, it is linked down below, as well as where to find her on social media. And while you're down that side of the video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and help this channel continue to grow and make more bookish friends. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.